In this video, we're going to go over the unit wrapper and sort of go in depth and see what all we can find out in a sort of complicated unit. So I have an LPD here. It's got some cargo. It's got some boats. I think some of the boats have cargo. It's got some aircraft. And we're going to try and dig in and see how much information we can find with just the unit ID. So we're not really actually going to do any cool Lua code in an event or anything. We're just going to poke around in Lua, if I can bring it up, to see what is all in the wrapper when we set it equal to a variable. We're going to see what we can dig through and find. So this is just very simple here. We've already done this a couple of times. We're going to set up a local variable called u, and we're going to do set edit get unit. This is this particular unit over here, and then we're going to print out whatever we get. And this is a pretty standard amount of information you get. It's not all that much. It's got the name of the ship, the type, the side that it's on, a GUID, some pretty basic information. There's a lot more information available than what you see here, though. And we've also gone over some things that once you set the unit equal to a variable, then you can do different things by just using the variable and then period speed. If we do this, instead of printing out all those things, it's just going to print out whatever the speed of the unit is. Some of these things you can adjust directly and other things you can't. So there's another part to the unit wrapper, and it's called fields. Not 100% sure why it's not available with just printing the U part, but if we do u.fields and print this, we get a whole bunch of extra stuff. Let me clear this to see what we actually get. Yeah, all of these properties. And as it is here, this is not particularly helpful. So we're going to try and loop through this and see if we can find anything else out about it. So in a previous video, we went over how to iterate over a table using pairs or iPairs, and I believe this is a table. So we're going to give that a try. I've already misspelled some stuff. 4k comma v, that's key and value in pairs. U.fields do. And we'll go ahead and print whatever v is, which is the value of the key. Let's see if this works. We're going to comment this one out so we don't clutter everything up. Okay. So that printed out a whole bunch of stuff. And again, let's clear this out. Run it again. You got components, type, fuel. Some of these things already existed in the other way. Type was one of them. And every one of these has 3 different parts to it. Components, a Lua table, and it's true. Type, string, and it's false. The false or the true at the end of it is telling you whether or not the data can be manipulated one way or another. So the type, this is a ship. You wouldn't want to be able to change that to a plane. That would just be weird. The components, you can change them if you need to. In some of these things, you can use the dot syntax by saying u.speed equals such and such. Other things you have to do send edit set unit, I believe, in order to change them. Okay, so that's all well and good. It's not really telling us anything about these, such as components. That's a table and it has a lot of information in it. I'm going to go ahead and we can do this dot syntax with components and print it out. It's still going to print the list of things at the top. That's fine. And now we get this, which is a table full of the different components that are in that are a part of the unit. It's not very readable, but you can tell it's a table And there's the index 70, 71, 77. So if we could iterate through that table for k comma v in pairs. At least I think we can do this. And again, we'll print v and see what we get. Ah, look at that. How much prettier is that? So that was just one of the numerous things that were in there. And what we'd like to end up with a list of all of these things, printing out whatever the value is of the thing, regardless of whether or not it's a string or a Boolean or a table. So we sort of have the bits and pieces here to do it, except for the fact that what we want is this group, but this whole thing is a string. And the way you can test for that is, so this is v. While we're at it, why don't we print out k and see what k is? Yeah, it's the property number, property 22, 23. There's a way to get the type of something, type, and then in parenthesis you put what you want. Let's see what the type of v is. And it's a string. And remember, v is this. It's got 3 pieces for every single one of them, and all we really want is the first one. So what we need to do is find a way to split this and then work with that. So we'll see if we can figure this out. There are some functions that are built into the Lua language that help you split a string into different pieces, and you can pass in something that you want to look for, in which this case we're going to do comma. So what we're going to try and do is find out where the first comma is, and if you notice there's a space before every comma, that's going to be important. And so we need a local variable to hold. What we're going to end up searching for is the placeholder, the number of places over from the left that the comma exists at, and we're going to call that t. And we're going to say this is equal to string.find. And in here you pass in some things that you want to tell it what you're looking for. The thing that we're going to pass in is v, which is the value of the pair in the table. And then we're going to look for a comma, which is going to be a string. And we're going to go ahead and put spaces around that just to be safe. And now if we do print t, we should get some numbers that are going to tell us where this comma is. And we're printing the t before the v, so that should be 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that right? Let's do a shorter one. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I was expecting 7, but 6 will work. And then, so now that we know where that is, there's another Lua function that we can use to get what exists between space 0 and space 6, which is really going to be space 2 and space 5, I believe. And we're going to call this T2 because I'm not particularly creative on this part. And this is going to be string.sub. And in there, we need to pass it some stuff. And again, we're going to pass in the v. And then you tell it where you want it to look for stuff. And that's what it'll give you. So on T2, which is going to end up being just this word proficiency without the period at the beginning, you're telling it, I already know where the comma is. I know what digit that is. Now I want to go find from digit number 2 to digit t minus 1 give me whatever that is. It's going to end up being a word. And we'll go ahead and change this to T2 now and run it again. And now you can see how I got delete out of this whole part here. Targeted by out of this whole thing here. If you change these numbers, say we change that to 3, and then we change this to +1, whoa, you'll get something totally different that's obviously not going to work. We got elite, a space, and then a period instead of delete. So let's undo that. Uh-oh, went too far back. Let's see if we did that right. Uh-oh, doesn't like that. String.sub, because we need t minus 1, not t2. There we go. And we changed that back to t instead of t2. There we go. So now we have fire to on. So we're sort of getting there. It looks like we went backwards, but we're actually getting there. We now have T2, which is this word. And now if we do, let's not print V anymore. Let's see if we can get what's in the wrapper. And we can't because we didn't reference it correctly. Can't do the dot syntax, it's the bracket syntax. Aha. All right. Still not very readable. Some of this up at the top is. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to see. So if we know that this is a table here, we could print out just the table. We could do another 4kV in pairs of that table, and we could print out that table separately, but we'd need to know what these are. Also, we didn't put, yeah, we got it side and then blue. We're going to clean that up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. It'll be side colon space blue, proficiency colon regular. All right, so let's see. We're going to need to find out whether or not the item, we're going to have to figure out what type it is, although we know some of them are tables. And that's probably, actually it's probably going to end up being what we're going to do is it's going to be, if it's not equal to a table, then we'll just output it. So let's see. T2, print T2. We really want to print V. Dot syntax, then we're going to do a string. That's going to be a colon and then a space, and then the dot syntax. That should get it so that we know what the descriptor is. It's not going to be T2, it's going to be this one. Let's combine this onto the one line. We can get rid of this now. And this should be halfway there. Error, line 6. Attempting to concatenate a field, a table value. Yeah, I think. Not sure this is going to work, but we'll try it. Boy, what did that do? That did not work. All right. Let's go back and look at what we got when we did this. I'm going to clear this. Didn't get anything. Line 8. Expected to close. Right. We're missing a parenthesis there. Not 100% sure. I think we had that in parenthesis from when we did the type. 6, attempting to concatenate a table value. I think that's because it doesn't like the fact that there's a mix of booleans and strings and whatnot. So let's see. We'll just try and see if it works if it's a string. And it still doesn't like it. We need 2 equal signs there. Okay. We're still getting something weird. What happened to, it was printing what we wanted at one point. Doesn't seem like it should be printing that. Oh wait, no it is. It is. This isn't V, this is T2. Aha. There we go. Condition underway. It's printing it out twice. That's not true because that's a separate property there. Condition V. Side blue proficiency regular. Let's delete this again. Run it again. See what we really got. Type. So we got some stuff. Not very much. We skipped all of anything that's not a string. All right, so now let's see what happens if we say it's not equal to a table. Because we know from before when it ran it that a lot of them were booleans, some of them are nils, and some of them are numbers, I believe. So speed's probably not in here, right? Okay, attempted to concatenate a field. So I've seen this before. It doesn't like when there's a boolean that hasn't been set to string. So now there's a Lua function that'll convert something into a string. Maybe this will work. Aha, look at that. So now we got numbers, we got nils, and there's a boolean right there. So now we have everything but the tables. I wonder what that bracket was for. Interesting. Interesting. I hadn't seen base before. All right, so I think we got everything except for the tables. Now we need to figure out how to do the tables. So instead of an n down here, if, and this is the that's the end for the loop of pairs. This is the no, that's not true. This is the end of the pairs loop here at the bottom. This is the end of the check for type. So we're going to move that down. Now we're going to use an else. So at this point, the only thing it can be is a table, because we said if it's not equal to a table, then do the first part. If it is a table, then we can do this 4K V in pairs again. Now what is it going to be? It's not going to be u.fields. It's going to be u brackets t2 do print v, I think, and then we need to end the inner loop if it's a table. 4kV in pairs U T2. Maybe. Ah, look at that. Okay, we're getting there. So we basically have done it, except I don't like the way it looks. Part of it's because it's a lot of information on one line. That looks cleaner like that. But what if I'd like to have all of the tables show at the bottom. It's hard to look at when all this other stuff is mixed in and they're not in order. So instead of doing it right there, I'm going to insert into a new table whatever this is. I'm going to do local, and we're going to call it tables equals empty brackets. So I'm going to declare an empty table up at the top. And then I'm going to insert into tables. And I believe it's U and then T2 in brackets. And then down here, I'm going to print the table called tables. That is not what I was expecting. Because I think this should just be T2, and then we'll worry about the table later. Yeah, so now we got the components, fuel, these are all the different tables that are in there, and now we need to iterate over that, and by doing this, we've separated out the non-table things so it's easier to read. Okay, we can do that down here. First I'm going to print something to break this up. Actually, Louise, I might make it look a little better. And now we're going to do another 4k comma v in pairs tables do and then here what are we going to print? So that's going to give us the T2 that was out of there, and then we still have the U. I think brackets, the value of it's going to be V. All right. Nope, line 12. Print. Yeah, there's actually a trick. On a print statement or a function, you don't actually have to include, you don't have to enclose a string in parentheses. See if that works. Oh, look at that. Sort of worked. So we're printing the table, but what we need to do is loop through another table within this loop of stuff. Right. And we're going to do a print V is going to be what the name of that table is. And this way it'll just have a name for what it is. And then this is where we're going to do another 4K And then I think this is where we're going to do U V do and then here we're going to print V, I think. Let's try that. Oh my God, look at that. That is pretty cool. I think that worked. We can sort of neaten this up a little bit by putting a separator here. So this will be after it prints out a table. Just put another separator, so it'll print end of whatever the table name is, table data, and then I think we'll just do another print of just a blank bunch of dashes, just to break it up, makes it easier to read. Look at that. I like it. So now you can see all of the different information that's in here, and there is some cargo. So let's see what's in the cargo. It's telling you there is some tanks, quantity 11. Interesting, tells you the crew. Name Bradley, quantity 24, and if we go over here and look at this, is that right? 11. Yeah, I thought it was 12. Interesting. Let's see. So we should also be able to find the LCACs in here someplace on the hosted. Looks like we're printing out what we put in the table. We don't need that. That's what this line was here. Let's get rid of all this again and run it again. Assigned units. Interesting. Somewhere there should be something that's embarked units or hosted units maybe. Hosted units. Interesting. In another way, I'd swear they said whether they're aircraft or not. 1, 2, 3. I also don't get why there's a 3, 24E67, and there's a 3, and it's the same GUIDs. It's duplicated. One where it's an index and one where it's not. Not sure why that is. Interesting. And so then we got all of the single line things up here is operating true, manual altitude false, hold position false, name, and then something a little bit weird going on here, where it's telling you what the base is, which is a pier. It's interesting that you get all the information about the pier as well. I'm not sure what the number there is at the bottom. It's not assigned to a mission, so that's nil. Hosted units. So we've done that. This code here should work on just about any unit. Let's go put a simpler unit out here. I don't think Actually, a SAM might be interesting. Tempted to place. Yeah, helps to be over land. Let's try that again. So it might show you the ammo that it has or something like that. So let's go get the ID. Back to close cargo. And up here, we'll paste in and we're going to delete everything in here so it's easier to read. No assigned units, sensors, weapons. Interesting. No cargo. Don't. Interesting. A lot of stuff in here. All right. So that does it for what I wanted to do with this loop. There's something else that was on the Matrix forums where Michael had done something here pretty similar. Doesn't separate the tables like that. It didn't do the inner loop on the tables like I did, so that just comes out as one giant table full of the table information. But other than that, it's more or less the same thing. This was pretty advanced for me a few months ago. I had no idea what any of this meant. I would use it once in a while to see what was in it. And now I think I finally understand what all of it is. This /R/N, those are carriage returns and new lines or something like that. I think the way he did some of this is a little different than what I've done, but I think I've managed to build the same thing from scratch. So there was one thing I wanted to go back and look at was on the LPD. I'm pretty sure if you printed what was that? Hosted units, I think. It'll tell you that they're aircraft. I'm not 100% sure why that didn't show up. Should be at the very bottom. Yeah, see there it says it's aircraft and that this is boats. But on this, what was that? Hosted units. I wonder if it's skipping the hosted units or whether we just didn't see it. Embarked units. Maybe that's what I was looking at, and I should hosted units. Yeah, see, it's not showing you that it was that some are aircraft and some are boats. There's 2 aircraft and 3 boats. Interesting. I'm not 100% sure why that is. I wonder if it's the that this is the key and I'm doing the value. Interesting. I wonder how you could change that. Let's just try adding in K. $16. All right, not happy. So maybe we could print K on its own line first. Now it's got it, aircraft and boats. All right, I like that better. Except for in things like these, the sensors is printing the K. I'm going to leave it there. That's pretty cool. So one thing you could do with this is that if you knew you had an aircraft on embarked, hosted on a unit, it's not flying around, there is the GUID of each of the aircraft. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you what their names are, but you could use that to go get that unit. And so one thing, if you had a ship someplace and it was at a base, you could do this same type of, you could run this on the base. It would tell you the GUIDs of the ships, and then you could use that to modify what's on the ship or something like that.